All right. Welcome, everybody. I am Dr. Victoria Grinman, and I'm here with Jay Skibbens. And I'm so excited to have another conversation with you, Jay. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I love talking to you too. So this is always a pleasure for me.
I know. We start and then I'm like, we need to go live because we're going to have this amazing conversation without everybody there. I'm excited about today because this is a really important question. And it's something that comes up quite often for, I think, a lot of parents. And today we're kind of targeting moms and, moms asking themselves, am I enough? Right? And other people asking themselves about others, like, is that mom enough? Like, is she doing enough? Is she being enough? Is she being who I think she should be? Right? So this question of am I enough is actually something that's come up in literature, in conversations, right? Like Winnicott talked about it, am I good enough? What do you think about, Jay, like why this is something that comes up so much?
There's layers upon layers to that answer, right? I think that a lot of it has to do with societal pressures. I think that we raise our girls to be moms. They get dolls to play with, they get kitchen sets as kids. They're kind of bred to do that role in a very dissimilar way that we do with boys. Boys aren't bred to be dads. We don't give them like the stereotypical barbecue tool set, or like they're encouraged to be like police officers and astronauts and baseball players or anything that they want to be. Mm-hmm. Where moms from the earliest of ages are like given a baby doll and like, here, take care of this. Oh, mm-hmm. Look how cute she is. She's being a good mom. And it's like, no, let her be a kid. Mm-hmm. So I think that for moms, there's just an innate pressure, or not even innate, because that means it's inside of them. I would say that there's a very strong societal pressure to be super mom from Jump Street.
Yeah. I'm thinking about the societal sort of sociocultural aspects of it, right? Compounded by perhaps this biological, first of all, need to nurture, right? Nurture and gather and sort of like create community and do for, right? Like I feel that, and this is generally speaking, and I think a lot of people would agree as we have these conversations within groups, that there is a lot of pressure to keep doing more, being enough in this realm, and having it all. And, wanting to have it all. Like, can I be a good mom and can I be a good me, right, for myself? And can I also like kill it at work? And can I, be an amazing wife? And can I be an amazing partner and a friend and all of these things? And so this question of, am I doing enough? Am I being enough comes up a lot.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point about like the workforce, right? Because women had to work to get to the workforce. It wasn't something that was always accepted and always encouraged. But then like once they got that chance, it was slightly tried to take away after, if you go back through history, but then it's that they have to do both, right? Mm-hmm. You don't just get to go to the workforce. You also have to go to the workforce and still be the great mom. Like mm-hmm. It just, you move one or two steps forward, but like you have to still bring with you the same pressures. You didn't get to lose the pressure of being a mom if you go to the workforce. You're still mm-hmm. the one people look to. You're still the one school is calling. You're still the one that like, if anything goes wrong, they call mom. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you don't get to, like, I think dads get to wear different hats, but like moms always have all of the hats on.
Yeah, I was just watching a comedy special, Jay, with one of my girlfriends this past weekend. And honestly, I forget the comedian's name, but pretty popular. We turned it off after a while. I wasn't that into it, but a pretty popular person. And he was talking very, very accurately about how, like, why did you call me? I'm the dad. Like, if you see a mom and a dad on a form, call the mom. Don't call me. And so he was like perplexed as to why the school called him and not his wife when something happened at school. And so, culturally, we're seeing this all over the place. I'm thinking about the show that I've been glued to, Working Moms on Netflix. Have you seen that?
I have not. I think that you suggested that last time. I just have not gotten to it yet.
Oh, you got to jump on that, Jay. We got to talk about it. I want you to watch it, and then we're going to talk about it.
Okay.
But it's like, it's a thing, right? It's something that we think about a lot. And I know for me, and I'd love for you to share why it's so important for you to have this conversation when you're working with parents. For me, the reason it's so important is because I believe, and this is how I work with people, is that it all starts over here. And so this question of, are you enough? Am I enough? Right? And this constant pressure of, am I doing enough? Am I good enough? I think that's really what the internal unanswerable sort of question always is going to impact children. It's going to impact relationships, and it's going to impact your relationship with yourself and how you operate. So if we can help people not just answer this question, but even answer, like, why are you even asking yourself this? What is a better question to ask yourself, right? Then we can help kids. Then we can help families and generational, sort of dynamics. So that's why it's so important for me. Why is it important for you to have this conversation?
I think that for me, the moms that I work with and talk to, what ends up happening is that, like, I spoke to a woman this past weekend, and she was telling me about the struggles that she's having, and what ended up coming out of it was that, like, even though she's going through like emotional turbulence and a ex that isn't letting her, like, is making her life more difficult, she's raising great kids. Despite everything else in life, her kids, like, one's going off to college soon, the other one is a very smart young man, and like they're well adjusted, they're doing great. So as a mom, she's doing great. But then, and speaking with other moms too, it's like, okay, but then what? Like, if your kids are great, so like, why are you still stressed out? Why are you still feeling unfulfilled? Because the mom part, you're doing so well. Like, despite all of the struggles, despite all of the pressures, your kids are amazing kids. I think that most everybody that I talk to, especially the moms, will say that. If I ask them to describe their kids, they say like glowing things about their kids. And, we don't love our kids all of the time. Or we love them all the time, but they're not.
We don't like them all the time, right? Like, that's conditional, right?
Right. But like, I have yet to talk to a parent who's like, no, my kid's just terrible and they're not smart and they never listen. And most everybody that I talk to has said very glowing things about their kids. But then when it's when they talk about their struggles, they also include their kids. Like, well, like, we have a hard time with this, or it's hard for us. And, you kind of have to push past that. And it's like, well, is it hard for, like, your kids seem to have handled it. Your kids are pretty resilient. Your kids have gotten through this. How are you doing?
Right.
I think that it's important for the moms to be okay taking their kids out of the equation for a minute and just being like, all right, well, how am I? How is my ex affecting me? How is this stress affecting me? Like, I need to put myself first, work on myself, and maybe not work on myself, but like, look at my needs and wants as an individual and not as a mom, not including my kids in that. Because I think that's where the transformation starts, is when you kind of peel back and when you take off all of the other hats, when you take off mom, when you take off chauffeur, when you take off like all of the time management, scheduler, lunch maker, all of those things. And you're like, all right, well, like, who is the woman? Who is the human? And how do we take care of her?
Oh, I love where this is going, because this is the distinction, right, Jay? We become we're who we are. There's like Sally, right? Sally, who's Sally? And then Sally becomes mom, right? And then there's this parenthood journey that's born, and the mom role is born when the baby is born, right? And then you almost integrate, right? Or just lose. That's why there's a lot of grief associated with becoming a mother at times that's not talked about. Because once that happens, it's a beautiful thing, but then there's also this transformation that happens. And we need to see, I think what you're bringing up is there's the Sally that's just Sally, and then there's the Sally mom. And sometimes Sally, is the one that needs more attention. And the Sally mom's doing great, right? But Sally is kind of like, what about me? And we forget about the person, right? Because the role of motherhood or even fatherhood, right, just like kind of takes over. And so our work is really helping people to integrate, right? Like who they were, right? And then who they've become, and being able to check in and say, okay, what's going on with me right now? Like, my kids are good. They're over it, right? They're just like they're not having a problem. They're just like, oh, this thing happened. We're fine. We're going to move on. But there's something over here with me. What's happening? And that's what you're bringing up, is like the attention on the self sort of gets lost. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I think that, the way that you just kind of described it is the mom part is doing great. Like, these moms have built great lives for their kids. And I think that, for a while, that's the goal. And like, honestly, for me, and I don't want to talk about myself too much in this space because this isn't for me, but like, I've recently, I would say within the last 12 months, made that shift from like, oh, everything I do is for my kids. I'm so motivated to give them the best life. I want them to have the best of everything. But then what you realize is that, like, okay, well, they do. Like, my kids have everything that they want. We co-parent, and both parents love them very much. And, they get gifts over there a lot, and they get their things here. We go on adventures. Like, my kids have a great life. I would love to be my own kid. But the shift happened when I was like, all right, well, now I need to build myself that same sort of life. I need to put I want to start doing what I want as well. Like, every movie we watch doesn't need to be off of Disney Plus. Every vacation we need to go on doesn't need to be kid oriented. Like, they don't get to pick everything. And I think that that's where there's a big piece right here that I'm working on, is motherhood isn't the same as, like, I think that in a weird way, sacrificing and motherhood have become synonymous. You need to start changing that. Like, being a good mother doesn't equal sacrificing yourself.
Oh, that's like a truth bomb that you just dropped. That motherhood and sacrifice and constant compromise don't have to be synonymous with one another.
Right.
And they've become that, right? Like, there's this martyrdom of like I'm doing this all for my kids, right? I'm doing this all for my kids. But then what we get to see, though, is the aftermath of that consistent behavior. And what we see a lot is this depression. I'm not even talking about a clinical depression. I'm talking about like a depression societally that we see sometimes, where it's like you lose yourself, right? Like, have you ever been so busy and like you just kind of lose yourself? Like, you stop showering, or you didn't shave. Well, you don't shave your legs yet. I don't know if you do, but like, you know what I mean? Just, I don't know. That happened to me a few months ago, where I was like, what happened? I think everybody went through that during the pandemic, where you just kind of like, you lose yourself a little bit. And I think that's actually happening now a ton, now that we're coming out of like being in our houses all the time, and people are recognizing, wow, like, I really need to get back to me. So, Jay, what do you say? Because I'm brainstorming with you here live. What do you say about how to create that space to make that shift and transition? Where does someone even begin?
To me, it begins with intentional thought. One thing that I have the mothers, it's what everybody does with my program, but the moms, I see a lot of growth in them when they start doing these things, is that I have them write down things that they want. I push for 100, but 100 things that you want sounds daunting, and part of, the exercise to actually get to 100. But what happens is that the first go around, their wants focus outward. They focus on, I want a Disney, like a Disney World pass for our family. I want more time with my kids. And that, these are great things, but they're outwards. They include other people. They're for other people. And what I push for is, all right, now pick 10 things that are just for yourself. I want to be in better shape. I want more time to myself. One person, I want to crochet. I want to learn Spanish. Things that are for yourself. And then you kind of start mapping out small steps to get those things. For one mom in particular, she, it's another thing that we push societally, that, if you get a planner, then somehow that magically equals time management skills. That if you just buy this,
no, you actually have to use the planner.
But yes, but not everybody can. I've bought countless planners that go unused, right? But for her, what we talked about was Post-it notes. If you want to accomplish something, like for her, the learning Spanish, we're just going to do one step at a time. So she's going to put a Post-it note somewhere that she's going to walk by multiple times a day, and she's going to put, download a Spanish speaking app or Spanish learning app. And then when she does that, she can take the Post-it note and throw it away. She crumples it up, she throws it away. And then the next time it's like, okay, spend 30 minutes on a lesson. She'll put that up somewhere in her house. Every time she walks by it, she will be reminded. And then, because what she has talked about is, if she sets like a deadline for herself, like she's like, at 3:00, I'm going to sit down and do this. But then as a single mom, things come up. Your kid wakes up early from a nap, or something else comes up, and you miss that deadline. And then you start beating yourself up like, well, see, this is why I don't ever get anything done. This is why I'm stuck.
Yeah.
But if you just have that and you just do it when you have the time, and then you crumple it up, and like that little action of like, all right, I got that done. Like it's smaller steps, because I think that we see these big goals. Learn Spanish is a big goal. But the reason she wants to is because her stepmom speaks Spanish. Like their whole side of the family speaks Spanish. And she goes to these functions and she just kind of sits quietly in the corner, and she wants to participate. So it's moving slowly towards that goal with like manageable steps.
One of the things, as you're sharing this, I was thinking about some of the families I work with who have children with differences in abilities. And for a lot of my research that I've done in my life, it was with families that have children with autism. And when you ask these parents, and this goes for both mothers and fathers, when you ask these parents, mostly mothers actually in my research, about themselves, they'll usually respond about how their child would respond or about their child. And it took, like you said, a few times, a few conversations to say, okay, almost retraining yourself to say, like, what about me? And that's a habit, right? Because we habitually become focused outwardly. And because we become focused outwardly, it's also sometimes a defense mechanism to not focus over here.
Well, and with that, then you kind of fall into a trap. Moms definitely fall into a trap of like, well, life is good. Like, my kids are happy. We have what we need. I should be happy too. If my kids are happy, I should be happy too.
So let me guilt myself for not being happy when I should be happy too.
Right.
And everything seems fine. Right.
Yes, exactly. Everything's going well. We have a roof. We have food. They have enough toys. They have enough clothes. They're happy. But like, how much energy are you putting into them being happy? How much energy are you putting into building their life versus how much energy are you putting into building your own self? And I think that, go ahead.
Yeah, no, rhetorical question here. Would love to know your thoughts though. So not so rhetorical. Would kids rather, do you think kids would rather have, not that kids are thinking about this, but just in their experience, a happy mom, a happy mom, like a person who is raising them that is joyous, right? Or someone who does these tasks and everything's in place and organized and done and da-da-da, but they see someone who's just depleted and unfulfilled and, all the other things that come along with that.
Well, and I can even push that a little bit further, is that like, it's not even about like happiness. Like, that's not like real. I think that kids want real. Like, my time with teaching, it wasn't always like the days I was happiest that I made the best connections. And with my own kids, it's not the days that I'm happiest. It's like sometimes it's the real moments. It's the times that I'm raw and vulnerable. But to your question, it's I wanted my mom, and that's one thing that we've worked on, even as me into my 30s. She protected, she shielded me. There are things that I'm finding out about my own past that had major impact that like she shielded me from. And I think that if I could answer your question personally, I would have rather her been real rather than making sure I was on baseball practice on time and lunches made and all of these things, like completing the tasks. I think kids respond to authenticity and vulnerability, and that'll include happiness, but it also is it's being real, it's being authentic, it's allowing yourself to be human. I think that kids want human parents. They don't want perfect
no. I love that. Kids want human parents. They don't want perfect parents. Because kids, I think, feel, and you've got kids, so you can attest to this. Kids feel everything. They also hear everything, and they know everything, and they see everything, right? But kids feel it all. So if there is some, break in authenticity and there's a lack of alignment in like what they're experiencing, there's going to be an impact there. And so what you're saying is being real. It doesn't mean like cursing up a storm and, kind of like being so raw, but it does mean just being you, right? And just kind of being with where you're at while being with your kids. I like it.
Yeah. I mean, because so that goes back to the pressure is that, I think that there's a level of motherhood that we see on TV. I mean, I'm glad that I haven't watched Working Moms, but I'm hopeful that like they show moms that are
working with an apostrophe. Working moms.
Okay, sorry.
Not so serious.
Okay. Yeah, because it's the stereotypical. Whenever you see a mom in a show or a TV or a movie, just how they look. And I know that there's movies, I know it's TV, like you're not going to really see them without makeup or whatnot, but they're all like this. There's a level that we put on moms, and there are countless moms or women that we hold to that higher pedestal, or like child rearing is so important, and this isn't to take it into a different context, but like dads are just sloppily shown on TV and movies. Like they're not. And what I mean by that is that there's not that standard that's impossible to live up to. And I think that we set the bar so high. And I mean, this goes back to the question of, Mom, are you enough? You have to know yourself. You have to like understand your wants. You have to understand your desires. You have to feel like you've accomplished something for yourself to go to bed at the end of the day and not worry about everything. Because if you're not doing things for yourself, then you have to start worrying about everything else. Like did I do this? Did I prep the lunches for tomorrow? Did I make sure that the thing got scheduled? If you're always doing, and then this is going to be cheesy, but we're human beings, right? We're not human doings. It's not about.
There it is. I loved it. That was a cheese alert. But that was good. No, it's true. As you're talking, I'm thinking about we're saying, there's more to it than just caring for your children and those tasks. And when people are listening, there's also this other pressure from the other side, which we are a little representing, right? Which is, do more for you, get a hobby. It's okay that you want to go to work, right? So I want to say that what's important is if your life is serving your children and you love it, I mean, you beam from the inside out, like you're in love with, just doing all that, and that's your fulfillment, go on with your bad self, right? Like, good. What we're saying is it's not supposed to look a certain way. It's not supposed to look like you have it all in every category. And it's not supposed to look like you're just dedicated to these beings that you're trying to keep alive, right? We're saying that however it looks to you, and to kind of find your find your truth around that, find your truth around that, and do that, right? So we're not leaning people towards any way of being. It's just looking over here and making sure that you're doing for you.
Well, yeah, and I think that, like, especially with one of the moms that just worked with, a big message that she received was that, like, she made that list of 10 things, and there was crocheting was on it, learning Spanish was on it, running that 10K was on it, spending more time with her friends was on it, and anybody else might have a different list, but one thing that was like kind of a breakthrough for her was that, like, doing those things doesn't take away from her being a mom. It's only going to add to it. And then once we broke down how it was, she spent 30 minutes a day on that list, that in a year she can knock out that list. And then the cool thing for her was realizing that, like, these were big things for her. Running 10K is huge for her. It's like as big as she can dream right now. Crochet and learning Spanish, that's as big as she can dream right now. But if in 1 year she can knock off everything on that list, how big do her dreams get after that? She's limitless after that because she's got the formula for how to get her dreams. And there's no way that at the end of that year, she knows Spanish and she's running a 10K and she's doing those things, that she's a worse mom. She's going to be, if that's the goal, to be a great mom, she's going to be a better mom. It doesn't take anything away to work on yourself, to be healthily selfish. Like, it's only going to grow what you're capable of doing.
I love that so much. I love the work. And I also appreciate the approach, right? And this is what we were talking about before as well, which is the insight. So there's this level of insight and awareness, and then pairing it with, and how important it is to get some support and guidance around, how to actually follow through with doing some of these things, these like actionable ways. And, some ways are getting a coach, being in therapy with someone who can guide you, an accountability group. And I love the idea of creating a culture among friends, right, where this is normalized, where people are supporting one another in, doing the things that make them happy. I love that so much.
Yeah. And because I think that what happens then is you realize that you're not alone in that desire to, keep your kids at daycare for an extra hour and go get a massage, or keep your kids in daycare and, like, do anything for yourself. It doesn't always have to be like stereotypical self-care stuff. It's just to breathe. I think that, there's this, like, going back to the sacrificing and the martyrdom. I think that there's no trophy for sacrificing yourself to be the best mom. Like, that's not, at the end of the day, like, what happens is that the kids don't appreciate all the work you're doing because they would have wanted you to just be better. Like, in that, more full, like, just more full.
Yeah.
Better.
One of the things that's said a lot is how much it's not so much maybe for the kids, but we don't even understand it for ourselves in the moment, that it's really for others, how others are judging us and what others are saying. And one of the things that I learned from the parents that I work with who have kids with autism is they've said to me, I always dreamed about being the mom who had, like, the perfect baked goods on the birthday. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then I had a kid who then was diagnosed with autism, and I didn't give two craps about being the mom with the best. If I bring my kid to school dressed and, like, healthy and clean, that's my standard of, how good I was that day. And they're like, we don't, they say, and parents of children with differences and abilities have taught me so much, because they say, we learned what the most important things are. And the most important things are, what you think of you and what your kids think of you. And it's not what other people think of you. And I think that, that's another thing culturally I hope that we can kind of start transforming, which is not to judge one another.
Yeah. And I think that there's a level to that of, like, taking yourself out of your own story for a minute and looking at the situation, because one thing that I see also is that moms have a hard time accepting help, but they also love helping other people. And I think that there's a there's a level that I've heard it from, I have heard it from dads and moms. So it's not just a mom thing, but since we're talking about moms, that's where I'm going to focus it, is that like asking for help, they feel like a burden. Asking for help, they feel like they're inconveniencing somebody. But like when they help somebody, they feel full. They feel like that's a way to show love. And I think that accepting help is a way for you to allow other people to show you love, and a way for them to feel fulfilled. So taking yourself out of it for a second and be like, well, if I accept help, that person's going to feel good too. Like that, it's a win-win if I accept help. And it's like, you never hear about somebody who helps somebody else. You're like, I wish I wouldn't have done that. And, I don't know. I think that there's a level to it that if you think about yourself doing the thing instead of receiving it, it kind of helps you reframe.
Yeah. I mean, we really are a community of people, and it doesn't happen alone. It doesn't happen in a bubble. And you're right. And, being able to request the help and not, like I was just sharing with you, my mom's dog just, ran away last night because of fireworks. And I was talking to her, and in mom form, I say, ask so-and-so to do so-and-so, this and that. And, I'll do this. And she'll say in mom form, but, this person has this going on, but this person has that going on. And I'll say to her, boundaries, that's not your stuff. Like your stuff is, I'm going to request it. It's the other person's job to say whether or not they can or they can't, or give you an excuse or take it on. So yeah, asking for help, being part of community, making it normal to say, hey, I'll pick up your kids, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'll grab them, or they'll carpool with me, or hey, can I bring over a meal? I made way too much lasagna. You know what I mean? And having that be a thing. And in one of my mom's groups that actually ended about a month and a half ago, it'll start back up in the fall, and I can't wait because they're an amazing group of moms in Massachusetts. We gave each other permission slips, right?
Okay.
Like, here's a permission slip to, tell me the truth and to ask for help anytime, right? And so you kind of make it normal to do that. So everyone knows that, hey, if I need help, I'm going to ask for it, and feel free to take something on if you feel you can. And so I think that having that communication with people in your life, saying, hey, I'm working on this. I'm working on asking for help. So if I do, just know that that's something that's hard for me typically, but I'm doing it. And so I just want you to know that.
Yeah. I mean, I love that idea of permission slips. I think that's a very good idea, because I think that that's just what we need sometimes. We need somebody else to say it's okay. And there's not a trap of like, oh, I'm going to have to always have somebody else tell you it's okay. Sometimes you just need somebody to tell you one thing that you're not doing is okay. And that's a game changer. So I think I love that idea.
You can take it.
Okay, thanks.
I give you permission. Jay, this is such a great conversation that can keep going on and on and on. We're gonna close it up for today. But do you have any closing thoughts? Anything that you want to share before we leave everyone until next time?
I mean, to me, I would really push to think of 10 things that you want for yourself, and to understand that that's not a selfish act to want things for yourself. And then think of how you can, start moving towards those goals in like 30-minute blocks. Like you don't have to commit complete days to it. You don't have to stop the rest of the world in order to make those things happen. Because I mean, we talked about it. And if you take 30 minutes a day for 3 weeks, that's 10 and a half hours.
Mm-hmm.
Think about how much you can get done in 10 and a half hours. So to me, it's everything in life that is worth having takes intentional thought, and intentionally thinking about yourself is like probably one of the coolest things you can do. So be a little bit selfish. It's healthy. It will help. Everything else will benefit too. What
an awesome tip. Yeah. And my call to action is to let at least 2 people in your life know what you're working on. So, letting them know, because they think that accountability is key when it comes to anything of transformation related to your way of being in the world. So let 2 people know, whether it's your partner, a friend, another mom, a teacher, I don't know, it doesn't matter. But let someone know what you're working on so that they can keep you accountable and also support you. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right. I cannot wait to have another conversation with you soon. But for now, we're going to say goodbye to everybody. And thank you, everyone, so much for joining. If you liked this, please share it. So many times we talk about things in silo and we don't share it. And I think the more we share, the less alone we feel in our experiences in life. And that's really what, we need as human beings. So please share it. If you liked something that we shared and you'd like to ask for more, you can, reach out to Jay or myself and message us on here. And we'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.